She walked into the precinct like any other concerned citizen. No entourage, no badge, just worry in her eyes and urgency in her voice. But when the officers laughed at her report and told her to leave policing to the professionals, they didn't know the truth, because the woman they dismissed wasn't just any walk-in. She was the new police commissioner, and by the time they realized it, the cameras were already rolling. The front doors groaned open, letting in a gust of wind and the quiet click of low heels on tile. She stepped inside without hesitation. Dark wool coat cinched at the waist, a leather folder tucked under one arm, and eyes that didn't wander. The precinct lobby smelled faintly of old paper and burnt coffee. One officer behind the front desk looked up briefly, then back down at his phone. The other stayed slouched in his chair, arms crossed, scrolling through dispatch logs, like the day couldn't end soon enough. She walked to the counter and waited. Polite, still, present. The older officer finally spoke, not looking up. "You lost, ma'am." Her voice was calm, measured. "No, sir. I'm here to report suspicious activity. A van has been parking outside my building several nights this week. No license plates, lights off, men getting in and out. Something about it doesn't sit right." Now both looked at her, barely. The younger one leaned forward, feigning interest. "What kind of van?" "Black. No windows in the back. I've seen people unloading crates around 2 or 3 a.m. They wear gloves, hoodies. Avoid the streetlights." The older officer let out a chuckle. "So guys, moving stuff at night. That's your emergency." "It's not an emergency," she replied evenly. "It's a pattern. I just think someone should look into it." The younger one whistled low. Crates and gloves. Must be a spy movie. The joke didn't land, but they laughed anyway. At her, not with her. She didn't flinch. "I've lived in that building for 11 years. I know what normal looks like." "Look, ma'am," the older officer said, finally straightening up just enough to lean on the counter. "We get a lot of concerned citizens with theories. Most of them just end up wasting time." She nodded. "Understood. I'd still like to file a report." The younger one smirked. "Tell you what, you keep an eye out. If you see 'em hauling missiles, give us a call." Another laugh. Another wave of dismissal. She stood a second longer, then offered a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for your time." The older officer waved a hand without looking up again. "Stay safe now." As she turned to leave, neither of them noticed the flicker of the surveillance camera above them, its little red light blinking steadily, nor did they see the name embroidered inside her coat collar when the wind lifted it slightly near the door. S. Whitaker. She stepped outside into the cold, the folder still tucked under her arm. No frustration, no argument, just a quiet walk to the black sedan waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door. She didn't speak until she was seated, looking straight ahead. "Log the encounter," she said, "and prep for morning rollout." The car pulled away, and back at the precinct, the officers laughed again, still unaware they'd just mocked the incoming commissioner. She stood with poise, hands resting lightly on the folder, voice steady, despite the undercurrent of urgency. "I've noticed the van every night since last Thursday. Same spot, same time. No plates. Back doors open. People unloading. Let me guess." The younger officer interrupted, not looking up from his phone. "Aliens." The older one chuckled. "Sounds like someone's been watching too much CSI." She didn't react. "It's not paranoia. They're not residents. They don't knock. They don't speak. They just drop things off and leave. Fast." The younger officer finally looked at her, grin spreading. "Lady, it's probably a moving company. Or a bunch of teenagers selling sneakers out their trunk." She opened the folder just slightly, revealing a list of dates and times. "I've logged the appearances. I work from home. I see everything from my window. I can provide the footage." The older one leaned forward, exaggerated interest in his eyes. "Footage, huh? You got one of those fancy doorbell cams too?" Another laugh. She nodded once. "If you'd like the files, I'm happy to." The younger officer cut in again. "Look, if this van's got you that rattled, maybe it's time to move to a quieter neighborhood." The words hung there, sharp, uninvited, and wrapped in a smirk. She didn't blink. "I'm not rattled," she said calmly. "I'm reporting a concern. That's what you ask of citizens. That's what I'm doing." The older officer waved a hand. "We'll make a note of it." He didn't move. No pen, No keyboard. No record. She glanced briefly at the badge pinned to his chest. No body cam. Off. Intentionally, she closed the folder. Thank you for your time. The younger one gave a mock salute. We'll get Mulder and Scully on it. She turned without another word. The laughter resumed, before the door had even closed behind her. Low. Dismissive. Expected. Outside, the wind pulled at the hem of her coat, as she made her way to the waiting car. The driver didn't speak, just opened the door and slid back behind the wheel once she was inside. She sat in silence, for a moment, then reached into her coat, and pulled out a slim recorder. She tapped it twice, stopping the recording. Every word, she said quietly. Exactly what we needed. The driver nodded once, pulling the car into gear. Back at the precinct, the officers returned to their scrolling and small talk. Just another citizen, just another concern ignored. They never asked her name. They never asked for the footage. They never once considered they might be wrong. And they certainly didn't notice the quiet red light above the desk flicking back on. The morning roll call buzzed with casual noise, coffee lids popping, locker doors slamming, jokes tossed between officers like softballs. A few muttered complaints about shifts, one mention of last night's game, and then someone called out from the hallway, "Command staff's on their way in." Everyone. Front room. Now, the mood shifted. Not serious, not yet, but alert. A new commissioner was being introduced today. Temporary, they'd heard, just filling in. Probably some suit from downtown. A placeholder. They shuffled in, rows of uniforms, some buttoned up, some lazy. Laughter still hung in the corners. Sergeant Halley stepped up front, clearing his throat. Listen up. You all know the city's been looking to tighten oversight. Today marks a new chapter. We've been assigned an interim commissioner, effective immediately. He glanced toward the door. And she's here. Silence fell. The door opened, and in stepped the woman from the night before. Same composed walk, same quiet authority. Only now the wool coat was replaced by a sharply pressed uniform, gold bars on her collar, nameplate shining beneath the badge. Commissioner S. Whitaker. No folder this time, just presence. She scanned the room like she already knew its layout, and when her eyes landed on Officers Briggs and Laramie, the two from last night, she didn't flinch, didn't gloat, just looked. Briggs went still. Laramie shifted, like the floor had moved beneath him. She stepped to the front. No theatrics, no speech. "I'm not here for ceremony," she said. "I'm here because trust isn't optional, it's earned. And yesterday it wasn't." A quiet murmur rippled through the back row. "Some of you saw me. Most of you didn't. That's fine. But if the badge means anything to you, it should mean listening, especially when the person standing in front of you doesn't look like you expect." Briggs looked down. Laramie stared straight ahead, suddenly very awake. She continued, voice calm but cutting. "This precinct serves a community that's been asking to be heard. I walked in yesterday not as your boss, but as one of them, and I was dismissed." She let that word land. "I'll be reviewing body cam compliance, incident logs, and intake reports from the last 6 months. There will be changes. A beat, and there will be accountability. No applause, no sound at all. Just officers staring at a truth they didn't see coming." She gave a single nod to Sergeant Halley, then turned and walked out the way she came, measured, certain, unshaken. In the silence that followed, someone finally whispered, "That was her." Laramie didn't answer. Briggs just rubbed the back of his neck, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him whole. The conference room was windowless, quiet, and cold, just fluorescent lights humming overhead, and the faint tick of a wall clock counting down toward discomfort. Officers filled the chairs, uniforms neat, eyes wary, some arms crossed, some pretending not to brace. Commissioner Whitaker stood at the front, sleeves rolled, no podium between her and the room, no rank pulled, no emotion worn, just presence, measured, unblinking. "Let's begin," she said, gesturing toward the mounted screen behind her. The video started. Lobby footage, grainy but clear. The sound kicked in next. "So guys moving stuff at night. That's your emergency. Crates and gloves. Must be a spy movie." Laughter, dismissal. Her voice, calm and factual, cut off mid-sentence. Briggs shifted in his seat. Laramie stopped breathing through his nose and started blinking. Fast. Around them the silence thickened. No one laughed now. If you're that scared, maybe move to a quieter neighborhood. We'll get Mulder and Scully on it. Whitaker paused the footage. She looked at them not with anger, but with something heavier, disappointment without dramatics. No report filed, she said flatly. No body cams on, no intake record, no log of a citizen's concern, only silence, and jokes. No one moved. She stepped forward, not raising her voice, didn't need to. Every syllable landed like weight dropped on glass. Public safety doesn't start with handcuffs or radios or weapons, she said. It starts with listening, and yesterday you failed that. The silence fractured slightly, a throat cleared, a chair creaked. No one spoke. I didn't need you to believe me, I needed you to hear me, and you didn't. Briggs looked like he wanted to vanish. Laramie stared at the floor like it might crack. Whitaker let the pause stretch long enough to let it sting. Then she stepped back, hit play again. The rest of the footage rolled, the door closing behind her, the laughter resuming, the casual wave of a hand dismissing everything she said. When the screen went black, she turned it off and faced the room again. No write-ups will be issued today. This meeting isn't about punishment. It's about culture. If this is how we treat the people we serve when we think no one's watching, then something's broken. Another beat. And I'm here to fix it. She picked up a folder from the desk beside her and set it down with quiet finality. From this point forward, body cams are to remain on during all civilian interactions inside and outside the precinct. Intake logs will be audited weekly. Every report, no matter how unlikely, will be documented. Every one. She closed the folder, looked at each of them. Dismissal isn't a policy, it's a choice. And now it's one we won't make again. The new directives landed by noon. Not suggestions. Orders. Body cams on at all times. No exceptions, no excuses. Intake logs reviewed daily. A new civilian liaison assigned to observe complaint handling. Random footage audits every Friday. It didn't go over quietly. In the locker room, some officers muttered under their breath. Babysitting with a badge, someone scoffed. Feels like we're the ones under investigation. Another grumbled. But no one said it out loud where it mattered, because the commissioner didn't shout. She watched, listened, documented, and when she spoke, it was clear no one was beyond accountability, including her. She walked the halls without warning. Sometimes she stood in the back of patrol briefings, arms folded. Sometimes she reviewed body cam clips herself. She didn't name names, just flagged moments that didn't meet the standard. At first everyone tensed when she entered a room. Then, they adjusted. Conversations changed. Language shifted. Officers started logging complaints without being told. One officer, new to the precinct, filed a tip about an aggressive landlord harassing tenants. The complaint made it up the chain and triggered an immediate call to the housing department. Nothing flashy, just action. And that was the difference. Commissioner Whitaker didn't chase headlines. She moved policy through presence, quietly, consistently. In the weekly debrief, she kept it simple. We don't rebuild trust with speeches, she said. We rebuild it in paperwork that doesn't disappear, in footage that doesn't get deleted, in how we treat the people we think won't be believed. A pause. That includes each other. The room sat still. The old guard kept their distance. But the rookies, the ones who hadn't yet learned to shrug off what they felt, watched her carefully. Some followed her lead. One started keeping his own community notes. Another stayed late to review reports on her own. The shift was slow, but it was happening. Laramie stopped cracking jokes during intake. Briggs, once the loudest voice in the room, grew quieter. He filed a full report on a suspicious vehicle 2 nights ago. It turned out to be nothing, but this time, it was logged, time-stamped, taken seriously. That mattered. Outside, the neighborhood took notice. A woman who had stopped calling months ago walked in to report harassment from a neighbor. She was listened to, filed a report, received a follow-up call 2 days later. She cried in the parking lot. Not because she was scared, but because someone had finally believed her. Inside, Commissioner Whitaker sat at her desk, reviewing community patrol logs. No celebration, no pat on the back, Just one quiet note scribbled in the margin of a shift report. Steady is louder than sudden. And in a precinct that used to run on volume, it was the quiet that was starting to change everything. It was just after 1 a.m. when the call came in. A rookie officer on night patrol, Rodriguez, 6 months on the job, radioed dispatch. Suspicious vehicle near Fairview Park. No plates. Parked under the trees by the south lot. Occupants appear to be unloading crates. He didn't joke. He didn't speculate. He followed the new protocol. Body cam on. Report filed. Backup requested. By 1:12 a.m., a second cruiser arrived. The van was still there. Lights off. 2 men at the back, hauling what looked like storage bins into the brush behind the playground. No one spoke. No one laughed. The responding sergeant, Jackson, reviewed the rookie's notes on the spot. He tapped his mic. Dispatch. Be advised. Possible 459 in progress. Requesting evidence unit and transport. The van's driver tried to flee. He didn't make it past the street corner. By 2:04 a.m., the scene was locked down. Flashlights combed the wooded area. Inside the bins, dozens of tablets, laptops and phones, each tagged with property numbers from school thefts across 3 counties. Some still had student logins active. Others were wiped clean, ready for resale. And parked on a nearby hill, engine off, coat pulled tight against the cold, stood Commissioner Whitaker. She hadn't been called. She just knew. When Jackson spotted her, he froze mid-report. She gave a slight nod, approval, not praise. Nice work, she said to Rodriguez, as he approached. He looked stunned. Ma'am, this matches the description from your... I know, she said softly. It's the same van. They stood there for a moment, the sound of distant radio static filling the space between them. Rodriguez's voice was cautious. Why didn't they take it seriously the first time? She looked at the glowing shell of the van below, evidence tags fluttering in the breeze. Because sometimes, people don't listen unless it costs them something. He didn't answer. Inside the precinct, officers would be reviewing the tip by morning, watching body cam footage that captured everything by the book, logged times, calm voices, no jokes. The arrest made the 6 a.m. briefing. No one interrupted, no one laughed. The silence, this time, was respect. Commissioner Whitaker didn't gloat. She didn't even mention her original report. She simply said, "This is what it looks like when the system listens." And as the officers dispersed, Rodriguez stayed behind, scribbling something in his notebook. Not for a report, just for himself. Outside, the sky began to pale, with early light, and parked just off the curb, the van was finally towed, marked not as an anecdote, not as a punchline, but as evidence in an investigation that should have started the first time someone spoke up. The room wasn't grand, just a city conference hall with folding chairs, lukewarm coffee in cardboard dispensers, and too many microphones clustered at the podium. The crowd was small. Local press, community leaders, a few unfamiliar faces in plain clothes. No fanfare, no security detail, just presence. Commissioner Whitaker stepped up without introduction. Her uniform was crisp but unadorned. No flags behind her, just a blank grey wall. She didn't clear her throat, didn't scan the crowd for approval. She just spoke. "I won't be naming anyone today," she said evenly. "This isn't about shame, it's about structure." The room went still. Leadership isn't about rank, it's about responsibility. It's about whether you show up, especially when no one's watching, and how you respond when someone trusts you with their voice. No dramatic pause, no heightened inflection, just the truth, laid bare. Last week a report was dismissed. This week that same report helped dismantle a theft ring spanning 3 counties. That's not coincidence. That's consequence. A few heads in the crowd nodded, quiet agreement. No applause. Just wait. The officers involved in the dismissal have been retrained. The rookie who followed policy was commended. But this isn't about individuals. It's about a culture that tells people some voices matter more than others. Cameras clicked softly. Someone scribbled notes. Behind the scenes, the footage of the precinct meeting, of her playing back the security video, of her saying, "You failed," that had already gone viral. It spread faster than press releases ever could. Shared, quoted, dismantled and dissected, not because she raised her voice, but because she didn't have to. And back at the precinct something changed. The smirks had faded. The locker room sarcasm dulled to silence. The new intake protocol stayed in place. Every complaint logged. Every camera checked. Every citizen spoken to like their words meant something. No ceremony marked the change. Just a sign, newly mounted near the front desk, simple white letters. No plaque. Every voice matters. Every report counts. Some officers rolled their eyes. At first, but then someone pointed to the van case. Then to the rookie's tip. Then to the woman who finally came back and filed her complaint again. This time with follow-up. Trust was slow, but it was starting. And Commissioner Whitaker, she didn't stay for the camera lights to cool, or the press to pack up. She finished her last sentence, gave a slight nod, and stepped off the podium. No handshake tour, no exit statement. Just a quiet walk to the back door and out into the daylight. Because reform doesn't come with applause. It comes with staying long enough to prove it wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. They mocked her, laughed off her concern, told her to leave policing to the professionals, unaware she was the professional now in charge. What started as a joke ended with new policy, real accountability, and a culture shift no one saw coming. Because when Commissioner Whitaker walked in, she wasn't just testing a system, she was about to change it. If you believe quiet leadership can spark real reform, share this story. What would you have done in her place? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories where truth speaks louder than rank.